what more do you know, Arthi, about the outbreaks at these meat plants?
Well, it was confirmed by Vancouver Coastal Health that essentially 28 employees at the United Poultry Company, and that's in East Vancouver, were tested positive for COVID-19. And it started over the weekend when one positive test came back for one employee, and then they decided to go in and test all of the present employees, and that was 71. 27 more tests came back positive, and so that's forced the plant to close for a 14-day period, essentially forcing it onto quarantine. And so all of that production essentially is put on pause for now. So that is one of the latest stories that we're hearing about an outbreak at a meat processing plant. As you mentioned, there's also 2 other meat processing plants in Canada that are impacted. They're both in Alberta, in Brooks, Alberta, and in High River, Alberta. We know the JBS plant, in fact, they have as many as 115 confirmed cases as of the last briefing by medical officials in that province. And so essentially they're down to reduced shifts in particular because of absenteeism, people saying that they are also feeling sick. And of course, then it would be important to not come into work. Now, this plant says that it has been taking all sorts of necessary precautions with physical partitions between workers to ensure distancing, and also the mandatory use of face masks, etc. And that closure, or that reduction in operation, came on the heels of, we know there were hundreds of cases, more than 450 cases reported at the Cargill meat processing plant, and that's in High River. And essentially there, they've also had to shut down their production because of that, in order to make sure that the outbreak doesn't spread further and that all of the employees can stay home and isolate so that there's not more sick individuals coming out from that outbreak. Okay, so what does this all mean then for the food supply? Essentially, there's a lot of questions about that. We heard from Canada's Prime Minister that they're watching it closely because the natural rules of supply and demand here are, if the meat is not getting made or processed, is there enough for individuals? Right now, we've heard from experts and from government, they've assured us that there's no shortage right now, but they are watching it closely because of the impact this will have on that supply. And we know that Cargill, for example, that's more than 1/3 of Canada's beef supply right now. And so that is something that they do want to watch. Now, we did get a chance to speak with an expert in food distribution, security, and safety about sort of the longevity or the preservation of these different meats and what that impact may be on the supply. Take a listen.
Pork and chicken days can really force producers to euthanize animals. So ranchers can absorb a 2-week delay much more easily than, say, with a hog industry or chicken.
We do know that the Prime Minister said for now they will focus on, all of these meat processing plants will focus on domestic supply, and perhaps that means curtailing exports of meat. Also, they are keeping a close eye on prices. They could go up, Suhana.
And how concerned should Canadians be about these outbreaks, Arthi?
That's the natural next question, right? In terms of food supply is one concern, but what about food safety? And that is a question that we are hearing a lot from CBC viewers on whether or not this means the meat coming from these facilities is safe to eat. For now, the broad answer that we've heard from essentially all of the food experts that we've spoken to is, as long as you're using proper handling and cooking of these meat products, there shouldn't be a concern for you. We did get a chance to speak with infectious diseases specialist Dr. Isaac Bogosh, and here's what he had to say on it.
Maybe if in a theoretical situation, if the virus does get on the meat, we have to remember the virus can only live for about 2 hours to 2 days on products like this. And by the time it makes it to the store, there's not going to be any viable virus on this, even if there was some on there as well. So I think the risk for this would be extraordinarily low.
And of course, experts are also reminding and emphasizing that people do need to cook the meat properly, because they say that cooking the meat will also destroy the virus. And wash your hands properly too when handling any of these meat products, as you would do with handling really anything else right now, Suhana.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arthi. CBC's Arthi Pole in Toronto. We are back in just a moment.